A very good morning from sunny Spalding in Lincolnshire. Hope everybody is having a good day so far. It's Monday, the 22nd of August, another very warm morning across the far north of Europe. We are seeing temperatures 18, 19 degrees right on that Arctic coastline, and we're going to have another warm day across much of the continent. But we do have a pretty interesting week coming up weather wise as we end not only August but summer 2022. Amazing, really, when you think about that. We're going to see not only heat but also storminess as high pressure builds over Western Russia, and we see that influx of hot, dry, but also humid air. Sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Moving in from the southwest into eastern portions of Europe with a fight and a push of milder coming in off the Atlantic, fresher, cleaner. We are going to see the battleground in between. So we're going to enhance the Cape values over the continent, especially on that boundary where the very hot air, slams against relatively warmer over the western portion of the continent. Cape values are basically increased vertical lift within the atmosphere. When you've got that collision, that bit of boundary level, you got that force of air to rise into the cooler mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and you get explosive thunderstorms developing to try and counteract that imbalance within the atmosphere. So you notice here at this very moment in time, we do have highest K values actually over the Mediterranean basin as we go through the course of this week, and we start to see that heat coming in from the east southeast. We're going to start to see the colours brighten. Of course, we've got the diurnal fluctuation between day and night, so the atmosphere tends to kind of lose its instability during the overnight period, and then of course when the sun comes up and the atmosphere, the column heats, you then increase the instability and produce showers, thunderstorms, gusty winds, frequent lightning, hail, and whatnot. We are going to see some pretty explosive thunderstorms. We did see that over the weekend in some parts of Europe. The ratio developed, and they have become a wee bit more uncommon, I think, over recent years. Really, since 2014, we've not really had much derecho activity across the continent. I think that's been probably an increase in temperature during the summer months, which has led to less imbalance within the atmosphere. When you tend to have a widespread warmer atmosphere, you don't tend to have the instability that you would typically see. So in North America, you don't get the tornadoes. In Europe, you don't get the severe weather quite the same as what you would do if you've got cold slamming against heat. But certainly, as we press through, particularly the middle and second half of this work week, we are going to see some pretty stormy conditions here across the heart of Europe here. Intensely hot air to the east, warm and humid air off the Atlantic to the west, and of course you've got that in between battle. The ratios, by the way, are long-lived, organised, multiple thunderstorms coming together to make one complex, which tends to run for hundreds of miles, lasts 6 to 12 hours, can drop tremendous amounts of rain, produces frequent lightning, damaging wind gusts, and large hail. And there are long-lived events that can be very destructive indeed, especially some of their winds can destroy buildings, trees, and whatever's in their path, so to speak. So we've seen that over the weekend. We could see the potential for something similar to that during the latter half of this week, as we've got a very extreme fight on our hands between relatively warm and very hot conditions. So certainly worth pointing out, as well as the heat, we've got the thunderstorm threat during the course of this week over Europe. Things are starting to get a little bit more interesting within the tropics now. It's been very, very quiet over the tropical Atlantic this summer so far, but it looks as if things are starting to waken up somewhat. The reason why it's been so quiet has been that the Manjulian oscillation has generally been favouring large scale sinking over North America, the Atlantic, and Europe. Hence, the tremendously warm summer that we've had so far. Looks as if we are going to see some changes as we go through this week. We are going to start to increase the levels of greens, which is of course upward motion, the oranges downward motion, sinking air. You notice here that we've got large scale upward motion Africa and much of the Indian Ocean basin. Pretty much all of the Pacific has sinking air in place. So that means we are going to start to see a little bit more of a more favourable atmosphere over the tropical Atlantic. And of course, it has been very quiet. Eastern Pacific has been a little bit more active, and it has been interesting because the activity over the Eastern Pacific, the lack of activity over the Caribbean with increased wind shear through the Caribbean, that's been a little bit more reflective of El Nino conditions here as opposed to La Nina that we've got at the moment. So, but it's been quite interesting, and it will be interesting to see how we start to see favourable conditions start to set in through the tropical portion of the Atlantic basin, and that is reflective of the forecast here for the end of September, the end of August into the month of September here. But it gets also more interesting as we go, more into September itself, because the Manjulian oscillation then, according to GFS, looks as if we're going to see some very strong sinking over the Atlantic as we go through week 1 of September here, which may then lead to more high pressure and warm conditions even across the UK and Europe, which would really kind of go against what I've said in recent times. But you can see here as we play through the loop through the course of this week, keep your eyes to the bottom of the chart here, the main development region of the tropics here. We're seeing systems come off Africa, as you would expect to see at this time of the year, something we just haven't seen so far in the summer of 2022. But you notice here this system looks to develop. Then we've got another system that develops off the tropical Atlantic. We've also got a system here not that far off the southeast coast. Now notice here that we don't have a particularly strong mid-Atlantic ridge of high pressure. The Bermuda high isn't overly strong. The Azores high isn't overly strong either. And you notice here that the model indicates certainly with this run, these systems starting to lift northwards instead of continuing to go westwards. So that means there's a weakness in the upper level ridge to the north of these features. So therefore, that bend towards the mid-Atlantic region indicates to me that we need to watch the pattern, because that can have influence once you start to transfer tropical heat and humidity northwards. That then in turn affects the jet stream and our upper level pattern over the North Atlantic and into Europe here. So something worth keeping an eye on as we go into week 1, even week 2 of September. Like I say, it gets a little bit more interesting still as you go through towards the early portion of August here. We've got the upward motion primarily over the eastern portion of the Atlantic basin. Now, that may also give the reason why there's a turn with these systems, because there is quite a strong downward sinking air over the eastern portion of the Pacific, so therefore they may not be attracted to go towards that, and that may be the reason why they're making that turn to the north over the Atlantic here. But it's as we go through the period and in to week 1 of September, notice here the strong sinking then starts to kind of push and progress eastwards, eventually starting to encompass the North Atlantic as well as the UK here. So we then suppress the tropical development and activity, and we also could be looking towards perhaps more high pressure building northwards over the Atlantic and into the UK here as we go towards Wednesday, the 7th of September. Long, long way out, and a lot of uncertainty when it comes to even the end of this week, next weekend, and into the following week here. But certainly, these are all aspects that have significance to our weather, and I will certainly try my best to keep you up to date as best I can. But certainly, very interesting times to come as we end the month of August. Extreme heat, storminess, the tropics are starting to come alive, and we'll keep an eye on that pattern as we go forward. So thanks for watching. I always appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And it's getting closer to autumn. It's getting closer to the winter, and stay tuned. Bye for now.